welcome back. We have our second pattern out right now. It's called the Marilyn wallet. I'm going to show you today how to make it. Before we get started though, I do want to talk about some important things. I did include all the pattern pieces in the instructions, so it might be helpful to print them all out, at least for that first make, and put them with each of the pieces because the cut list can be a little overwhelming, I'm not going to lie. But before we get started, I just want to point out that the wallet does call for Peltex, and this is the secret sauce of this. Please don't skimp on Peltex because this is what gives it that substance. However, we will not be fusing the main and the flap, only these little guys. So if you want to get all your pieces cut and go ahead and fuse all your interpretations, go for it. Do that, the shape flex and stuff, but don't fuse the Peltex. The other thing I want to talk about is your flap. It can be directional. So when the wallet's closed, you want your direction of fabric to go up and down, and then the inside can be directional as well. When the wallet's open, it goes now up this way or even sideways when it's open. So keep that in mind if you're using a directional fabric. Same thing can apply to your side accent pieces. It'll be directional. So just be mindful of that before you cut out all your pieces. Let's get started. We're going to start by first assembling our card slot. So grab your long strip of fabric, laying it horizontal in front of you. Go ahead and measure 2 inches in from the edge and put a couple of marks there. And then from that mark, another 6 inches. Those are the only 2 marks we're going to be making because now we're going to go and refer to the template that I instruct you on how to make. Now we're going to go ahead and take our card slot piece to our ironing board, and we're going to go ahead and pinch right at those markings we just did, and we're going to bring them up to that first set of markings and keep it nice and even, and go ahead and press it with your iron. Now that we've got this, go ahead and grab your card template, line up the top fold with the top of this, and again we're going to go ahead and do that fan folding. And we're going to take the top of the fold right to that line on our template and go ahead and iron it. And I'm going to continue to do that fan folding until I have 5 card slots. We just completed our fan folding, so now we've got the 5 pockets. I lopped off the excess of our fabric. We're going to go ahead and apply our shape flex to the very back of these. So carefully flip it over. Center these so there's a little gap on each edge because we're going to go ahead and trim down that side too. And then go ahead and press it with your iron. We have trimmed down our pocket pieces to its completed size. Now I'm going to grab my ruler again and we are going to measure in 3 inches and draw a line down the center. Doesn't need to be removable because that line will not be there in the end. And then we're going to go ahead and take the vinyl we've already prepared, little notch, and then we're going to line it up along the bottom and with the first fold and go ahead and clip everything in place. Then I'm going to take it to my machine and I'm going to baste along this edge, and this, and then I'm going to go just to the left and just to the right of this center line and then cut it into 2 separate pieces. Now we're going to add our side accent pieces to our completed card slots. This is piece 1 and piece 2. I went ahead and already fused our 1/2 inch Peltex pieces 1/4 inch in from each side, just like that. And then because our wallet will have the vinyl on the left and the non-vinyl on the right, I'm going to leave it positioned in front of me that way. So then I'm going to take the long edge and line it up with the left-hand side of these pockets right here and clip in place, and then the long edge with the Peltex on the right-hand side of the vinyl right here. I'm going to go ahead and clip them and then sew right along this line, press it open. So we've just added the piece 1 of the card accent pieces to the sides, so we're going to go ahead and add our smaller piece 2s to the opposite end, right sides facing, and we're going to do another 1/4 inch down each side, press it all open, and then we're going to top stitch along both sides after that. Okay, we've got both sets of the card accent pieces attached. So now we've got that little piece of Peltex here. We're gonna use that as our folding line, just like this. And then we're gonna go ahead and clip this in place. I'm gonna do that with both pieces. And then I'll take it to my machine and I'm going to go ahead and do an 1/8 inch seam down this side and also repeat it on this side. And we're gonna come back and trim off this excess with our ruler. We've completed our card pieces. We're gonna just go ahead and set those off to the side and move on to our lining. We have our pen pocket pieces, piece 1 and piece 2, and then the lining pieces. You'll see piece 1 is much longer than piece 2. That's the one we're gonna go ahead and fold in half, and we're gonna sew a seam across here. Then once that's done, we're gonna go ahead and place it on the shorter piece 2 and baste these two together. And then we'll have our lining pieces, and we're gonna go ahead and put them right sides together, lining up one edge, sew a 1/4 inch, press it open, and then we're gonna repeat with this side. And I'm gonna go do that right now. Now I had you cut all these pieces a little big because as you can see, it's very easy to kind of get it uneven and you don't wanna get too small by trimming it all up when you go to finish this piece. So we want the finish to be 9 inches across by 8 inches tall. So I'm going to measure from this seam here 4 inches out because my pen pocket is exactly 1 inch. So we're gonna go 4 inches out from that seam, and we're gonna cut off this excess. Flip our pocket around, and we're gonna go do the same thing on the other side. We're gonna go 4 inches out, cut that off, and then we're gonna go ahead and just trim a little bit off the top and also the bottom. So we want this part to be 8 inches. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I'm at the 8-inch mark and cut it. So now we got a perfect rectangle, nice and even. So now we're gonna grab our completed card slots, and again, piece with the vinyl goes to the left. We're gonna line up all the raw edges, and then the one without vinyl goes on the right. So we're gonna go ahead and line all that up, clip in place, and then we're just gonna go ahead and baste all around the edges. Obviously don't go down this because this is our slip pockets. And then this part will be one piece. Now we're gonna go ahead and take our back main. The bottom is the one with the rounded corners. We're gonna round the left-hand set of corners here. So we'll set it right on top and use this as our guide and go ahead and just round this up a bit. And now that is good to go. We're gonna go on and move to our flap. Now we're gonna take our exterior flap and our lining flap, and we're gonna put them right sides together and clip them in place. Then I will be taking this to my machine and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, go very carefully around all of this. Then I'm gonna cut out notches around these curves, flip it right side out and give it a good press, and then I'll show you what to do next. So just turned it right side out and gave it a good press. And now I'm gonna take the Peltex flap piece. I'm gonna go ahead and slide it in just above the seam allowances here. See, just above. And then do the best you can to kind of get it nice and snug in there. Push it all the way down. I'm doing a twist lock, so I've already cut out a hole. If you're doing a magnetic snap, you don't have any hole in your Peltex. But you should have a nice gap above the top, a 1/2 inch gap, so that when we go to add the zipper, it's a little bit easier. So now I'm gonna take it to my machine and I'm gonna do a top stitch in here, and then we're gonna move on to our twist lock and get that going. All right, so I did sew across the top to close it all because I'm now done with that part. As a magnetic snap, you would need to leave that open so you could get in and insert it on the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my twist or flip block, whatever you're using, and this is gonna be my guide for the hole that I need to cut. I'm gonna go ahead and center it like so, grab my removable marking pen, and I'm gonna outline the inner circle. And then that is going to be the hole that I'm going to punch. Amazon has some pretty cool pre-set punches you could use. I'm just going to do the old-fashioned way with scissors and then cut just beyond that line so that all the raw edges will fit within this little channel for my flip block. Okay, so that has been inserted. It's now ready to go. We are going to place it on our completed card slots, centered, face up. So you should be looking at the outside of your flap right now. And then when you center it, you should have 1/2 inch on each side. So I'm going to take this to my machine and I'm going to go ahead and baste that in place so that it becomes one piece. And then we're going to move on to probably the hardest part, installing the zipper. I can't stress enough that it is important to do a 6-inch zipper. So if you have a larger one, that's fine, but it will need to be cut down to 6 inches. We're going to add our zipper tabs by sewing these each to the end, opening them up, and then top stitching. Okay, so now you want to center your zipper on the center of the wallet and then have equal amounts of the zipper tab on each side of this. So it's about 3/4 inch, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut off this extra on each side. So now it's equal with the top of this, and then I'm just going to, I have the zipper pull to the left. So I'm going to just fold it back on itself like this. So right sides of the zipper facing the right side of this. And I'm going to clip here and go ahead and baste across here. And then once I got my zipper the way I like it, it's centered, it looks good. Then we're going to start our zipper sandwich and add our pocket lining. So I will put this on top of that. And again, do my actual stitching across here. Then we're going to go ahead and open it up like this. And you're going to just sew only catching the zipper tape because otherwise it gets way too thick under there. So when we open this up, I'm going to do my top stitching just across this, but it's only catching the zipper tape. Okay, so we've got the first part of our zipper installed. There's no stitching here. We only did the stitching just through the liner, attaching it to the tape only, okay? So now we're gonna grab our back main, right sides facing together. We're gonna line up those edges and we're gonna go ahead and baste it, make sure we like the way our stuff is situated. We will be flipping that whole piece over and taking our other pocket liner face down and doing the zipper sandwich once again and sewing that seam. Once both pieces are sewn to the zipper, we will be flipping it over and sewing through both pieces this time. So when this comes back up this way, I'm going to be doing a top stitch and it will catch the lining and this as well. Okay, so now our back is on and we did sew through both layers here. So we're going to go ahead and open up our zipper and we're going to go line up the main panels together and start clipping in place. When we get here, we want to go ahead and pinch the zipper tab perfectly in half, and we want the fold, the pinch, to go towards the lining. We don't want it to go towards the main body or you're going to get dented corners. So pinch it and put the fold again towards the liners and clip that in place, and then continue to clip all along here. And then when I go ahead and sew this, I want to sew it with my liner piece face up, because I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance to get me right up against my flap underneath it. So it helps to switch to a narrow foot or a zipper foot so you can get as close, and then maybe even tucking your flap out of the way, but keeping a 1/2 inch seam allowance down here. We're going to follow the curve, and then we're just going to sew above the basting line on our lining piece so that we can still have a nice 1/2 inch accent piece showing, because if you take the 1/2 inch here, you're only going to get a 1/4 inch, and it's just aesthetically a little off. So finish clipping, and then again switch to a narrow foot, and we're going to start here going a 1/2 inch, riding right along the edge of our flap down around here, 1/4 inch, again 1/2 inch, riding against the flap, and up here. We're going to leave this open for our turning hole. Okay, so we took our 1/2 inch here, and then we just came only a 1/4 inch on the bottom. I didn't like my rounding, so I went back over it to fix that. So now's the time to kind of look it over and make sure that it's pretty even. So this is like a little bit below 7, and same thing up here, because if this was much wider coming out like this, your corners will pop out underneath your flap. So I'm going to go ahead and trim down my seam allowance, kind of notch around these curves, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it right side out through our hole here. All right, so it's now turned right side out. I took a sharp tool and I went right under inside here to give those corners popped out on both sides. And then now I'm going to take that piece of Peltex I had you cut earlier, and it should be a perfect fit. If you think that it's too big or it's extending beyond one side or the other, trim it down. But right now this should be a good fit. We're just going to go ahead and carefully round the corners that are going to be fed inside the wallet. So right now it looks pretty decent, but this is really what gives it that nice wallet feel. So I'm going to go ahead and tri-fold it this way, and then go ahead and insert it into my pocket and shove it far down in there into all the corners. And then go ahead and pull out your lining and get it seated nice in there. If it's too big, your seam allowances were maybe a little aggressive and you took too much, more than a 1/2 inch, and the Peltex starts making it ripple, because it's, and you see the Peltex underneath rippling, you'll need to trim it down. But this is the time we're going to want to go ahead and kind of position it nice in there. I'm just going to shove this back in for a moment. And I'm going to go ahead and fill my wallet how full I kind of want it to be. If you're going to put a phone in there, go ahead and put that in there as well, so that it will fit when we add our twist lock. Now you want to make sure that when you fold it up, you don't have your pointy corners like that at all. Again, if you took a narrow seam allowance, they could point out. It's just not a cute look. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it up, and then mark where my second part of my flip lock would be. And when you turn it right side out, these should pretty much line up when it's all full. I'll show you that. Okay, so now I took everything out. I'm going to go ahead and open up my zipper, stick my hand in here, pull out my liner. And I want my hand to go below the Peltex, so that when I cut my holes here, I'm cutting through the back main and through the Peltex, but we're not catching here. So use your hand to help with the counter pressure, so that you can slit through here and not go too far through the other side. And you only want to cut the slit as wide as this. You don't want a huge slit, or you will see it. So by making marks with this, I'm only doing, it looks like 1/8 of a slit maybe. And then just pushing it through with my fingers as counter pressure. Again. And then this is how, just stick it through all layers. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and take this out, add a bit of fray check to those holes. If this is a cotton fabric, you don't want it to fray, because again, you're gonna see the slits with this. And then I'm gonna feed the washer in through and push the prongs out to the side, and I'm gonna take a piece of duct tape and then put it on the other side. That kind of keeps it from potentially coming loose, but it also softens it in here so you don't feel a bunch of metal in there. Okay, last step here. We're gonna go ahead and tuck our raw edges under about a 1/2 inch, give it a press with our iron, and then sew that shut. Then we're just gonna go ahead and shove it back inside, close your zipper, and then your wallet will be done. She's done. You got your zippered compartment up top here for your coins. Open it up. I like to put my checkbook on one side, cash on the other. I got a pen, which I'm always needing. And then when you just close it up, it's such a nice little compact wallet, perfect for a small purse.